All right, we are live here for the Rotoworld Fantasy Basketball Q&A. We'll be doing this all season long at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesdays. We're off to a little bit of a late start today. Zach has some technical difficulties. If you saw my tweet, he's not actually trying to sit here and convince me that it's okay to tell his friends to take James Harden in the first round because he talks about fantasy basketball and they'll believe him no matter what he says. So I was not actually telling him that that's not okay. He knows better. He's not actually doing that. So we are going to wait a few minutes on him. But until then, if you guys want to start throwing in some questions, I may get to a few. But until then, I'll just start talking about what's been going on around the NBA. We have another week until the regular season starts. It'll start next Tuesday night, which means we have a few more days of preseason games. Nothing on, I believe it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We're done with preseason games there. And then Tuesday night is when we kick it off. There will be 2 games that night. Lakers at Nuggets. That'll be the ring ceremony for Denver. And then we'll finish it off with Suns Warriors. That's opening night 1 week from today. So that's really exciting that the NBA is this close to being officially back. Obviously, the preseason's been able to hold us over a little bit. And the preseason's been a lot of fun. You know, you can only draw so many conclusions from it, but Victor Wembanyama looks as good as advertised. Chet Holmgren looks as good as advertised. That's going to be a very tight race for Rookie of the Year with 2 guys that are going to be dominant in fantasy basketball. A lot of blocks, but also good production across the board just because they're really good basketball players. Other rookies that look good as well. Scoot Henderson looks good. Julian Strother is an underrated guy for Denver that's looked really good, been able to score the ball with ease. He'll probably have a pretty limited role during the regular season, but he's going to be a pretty good player for Denver that we'll get to see opening night. And now that I've just been monologuing here, I finally have my partner in crime for this Q&A. Zach is here with me, and apparently, despite Halloween being 2 weeks away, has already eaten his weight in Reese's Pumpkins. Really excited to see how the next 2 weeks are going to go for Zach. Hopefully, at this rate, he's still able to make it to opening night. And should be some fun basketball there. But Zach, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? Sorry for the delay here. Of course, I have to get a update and reboot right at 4 o'clock. So my apologies for being late, but thanks.
Yeah, man. We only have, let's see, Zach, I just gave kind of my preseason thoughts. Before we get into any questions, what have you kind of seen so far through the preseason? I know we just talked about it on Thursday, but we've had a whole weekend of games to add into what we can make of it. So anything stood out to you?
I think for right now, the preseason is a good time to maybe confirm some biases. You know, I don't know that we can necessarily take a ton from it, but we can certainly take something from it. So I think for right now, 2 of the most interesting teams to me are Denver. Obviously, we've seen Julian Strawther, play really well so far. I'm a big Christian Brown guy, so I'm excited to see what he can do. Hunter Tyson, obviously, they have a ton of backup minutes available for that lineup. So I'm definitely excited there. I think for your Atlanta Hawks, obviously Jalen Johnson, Saddiq Bey, which one of those guys is going to see some additional run there. So I think that's been very interesting. And the Boston Celtics as well with Mr. Fast PP, Peyton Pritchard. He's been looking really good. Is he going to see some increased run for the Celtics as well? So very, very exciting time for, the NBA, for fantasy hoops. Those are the teams that I'm keeping an eye on for right now. I missed your monologue, but I don't know. Are we in some sort of agreement with any of that?
Yeah, I think we are. I don't think we actually overlapped on anything that we talked about, so that's good. Your nicknames still amaze me. I just where you get them, it just amazes me. But the Hawks are definitely a team to keep an eye on. Jalen Johnson has started the first 2 games. Will be interesting to see. I don't imagine he'll start during the regular season, but I think there's a chance. But maybe later on in the year specifically. But if you want to, I guess we can go ahead and get into the questions that we have.
Let's do it, man.
All right. So that
All right,
first one, you take it away,
oh.
Zach. You take it away.
Oh, all right, man. Yeah, I was just going to say, I know we were talking before the show about how much we both love playing in Roto. So we'll kick this one off with you, man. DeJounte, Bane, Garland, and Fox, please rank. And no, you're not allowed to say this with an Atlanta Hawks bias.
I'm not allowed to use Zach, I don't know what you're talking about. I am never biased towards the Atlanta Hawks whatsoever. Man, this is a tough one. I think four guys that are pretty, equal as far as what we're expecting from them in fantasy hoops, kind of between the early third round, maybe even second round for Bane to the fourth round. So kind of all in that same range. All guys that, if I'm not mistaken, I was doing a quick double take to make sure. I think they all played 70 plus games last season. I could be slightly off. Darius Garland played 69 and Bane played 58. So actually Bane played a little bit less, but I'm probably going to go Bane first in this one. I think the 8-cat does kind of not necessarily hurt him a little bit, but having the ball in his hands less than the other three, doesn't mean as much for the turnover category, but I'm still going to go Bane. I think he's going to get off to a really good start this season. The thing about Roto leagues is whenever they do good, you're going to get that production. It's not like he's going to do really good at the season beginning of the season, fall off, and then it's not going to matter once you get to the fantasy playoffs. Like, you're still going to get that production counted for you. So I'm probably going to go Bane first. And then I'm going to go DeJounte Murray just because I like the steals. I feel like he's a little bit more efficient than the other two as far as lack of turnovers because he has Trae Young there as well. Then I'm going to go – that's kind of tough there at the end. I think I'm going to go Fox just for the production. I think Garland having to share the ball with Donovan Mitchell a little bit more, you'll get more bigger games out of Fox. But I guess it also kind of just depends on your team build because De'Aaron Fox is a little bit worse in the free throw line. He's a 78% shooter. Garland's an 86.3% shooter. So kind of depends on how you're building out your team, what you're going to try and be strong in. Yeah, that's where I'd go. Bane, DeJounte, Garland, Fox. No, excuse me, Fox, Garland. No Hawks bias.
All right, right on, man. I think I will go. Oh, I do like that order. I think I will go. Oh, after Fox's big year last year, I think I will go Bane. And I'm expecting Garland to take another step this year. I will go Bane, Garland, Fox, and Murray. Sorry to do it to you, man. I will put Murray at the end of that list.
More for me.
More for you, man. That's right. That's right. I love to share. All right. Moving on. From Hassanian, how would you build around Curry? Who would you target in the third and fourth after taking Curry in a 10-cat 10 team? Okay, so I think we need to back it up just a little bit. Who are you taking in the second round? We skipped over that round.
Yeah, I think, assuming 10-cat, 10 team, first of all, we don't know what the 10th cat is. Unless you do, I don't think I know what the 10th cat is. Could it be effective field goal percentage? Could it be 3-point percentage? Could it be true shooting percentage? I'm not really sure. But either way, it's a category Curry's probably actually going to be pretty good in if it's any of those. But I'd imagine he's still going around pick 6, 7, 8-ish. So in a 10 team, you might actually be looking at a guy like Devin Booker. I think would probably actually fit pretty well. Maybe an Anthony Edwards or a Kyrie Irving. I don't know. I think what I've tended to do is when I go a position in the first round, I actually end up kind of not necessarily doubling up, but going with somebody else that has a very similar play style. Like if I'm going point guard in the first round, I'm probably going to go point guard in the second round. I think that's totally fine because you can generally start both. And it gets you pretty strong in those first couple categories that they're really good at. As far as the third and the fourth round, I guess that would kind of be if it's like we'll just say it's pick 5, pick 6. So it's like 14 or 15 in round 2. I think it'd be like 25 or 26 in round 3, if my math is correct. So I think, we just talked about Desmond Bane. I think he's a guy that can fit pretty well there, give you a lot of threes, a lot of points. Lauri Markkanen is another good look. I think he actually probably gives similar stats to Steph, but he's also playing forward instead of guard. So you're getting, a lot of points. You're getting threes. He's helping you out in rebounds, obviously, a little bit more. And then in round 4, I'm just going to kind of keep going here, Zach, and then you can add in if you dislike any of the picks. A Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brown are kind of going in that range, and I think you're getting more of that kind of points and threes along with some other numbers as well. I think the 10th cat kind of matters, kind of impacts what the decision would be, but Steph gives you a lot of flexibility because he's going to dominate threes, dominate points, but he's also going to give you pretty solid value for a point guard across the board.
Yeah, I think those are all totally fair selections there. I'm just kind of going back through the article that we put out this morning. You, me, and Raph kind of riffed on this a little bit in the latest one over at NBC. We went through and did a quick 2-round mock. And in that one, Raph had Steph at 7 and paired him with Devin Booker at 18.
Okay.
His reasoning was you can build a really strong foundation of scoring and triples, kind of what you alluded to. And Booker this season, now that they've swapped Chris Paul, right? So Chris Paul is no longer playing with Devin Booker. He's playing with Steph Curry. That could increase Booker's assists and maybe cut down on Steph's assists. So they can kind of balance one another out in that category. And like you said, taking 2 guys, that play a similar position back to back, don't necessarily need to focus on a punt build. If you were doing that, maybe it would be, punt blocks, for instance, if you're taking these guys. But yeah, I think Curry and Booker at that spot is totally fine. And you mentioned maybe a Cade Cunningham in the 3rd round. I think that would be phenomenal. All right. Any final thoughts on that one?
No, man, I'm ready to talk about my Hawks again.
Let's do it then. Thoughts on Double J breakout season? Does he need trades to get more playing time? Does he?
Unfortunately, yes. I still think that there's a chance that he just kind of overtakes Saddiq Bey in the starting lineup. I was talking about this during Josh's Q&A yesterday, that there's a chance Saddiq Bey is just such a liability on defense that Quinn Snyder says, hey, we need Jalen Johnson in there to help us out defensively. And Jalen Johnson has shown the ability to hit some threes during the preseason, so maybe he's not as bad from out there as we kind of thought, because he didn't really do much during his first 2 seasons, was seen as more of a slasher. So if he can knock down consistently, I mean, he's going to get open looks with Trae Young and DeJounte out there. So unless he just flat out takes the job from Saddiq Bey, because DeAndre Hunter is going to be out there as much as he's not ideal for 9-cat fantasy leagues. He is their best perimeter defender, especially against scoring wings. DeJounte Murray is great for steals, but he's not necessarily that lockdown defender that you want out there guarding Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, for example. He's not the ideal fit there, whereas DeAndre Hunter is their best option. So Jalen Johnson would have to start at the 4. I don't even think they really trade Saddiq Bey because it doesn't make a lot of sense to. It's not like they're going to, unless they're literally just trying to open up something for Jalen Johnson and combine him with somebody else, like a Saddiq Bey and Clint Capella trade. But I don't really see a trade benefiting Jalen Johnson. Now that I think I'm kind of walking back what I said when I started this train of thought, but I think he's going to end up just having to straight up take the job from Saddiq Bey. But I'm not sure how quickly that happens. So I think Jalen Johnson's probably a last round guy I'd take a chance on, maybe last 2 rounds, and that hope by the end of the season he's kind of taken on that role. But I think that by the time next season starts, when we're doing this all again next year, Jalen Johnson's going to be a guy that's going significantly earlier than he is now.
So I think probably the trade that's being alluded to, right, is going to be a Clint Capella deal, which is
right.
Kind of something that's been on the block for a little while, which would obviously benefit Onyeka Okongwu as well. But as you mentioned, man, there's a lot of different options that the Hawks have. None of them are particularly appealing, given that they kind of cannibalize one another's production. So I have to agree with you here on Jalen Johnson. Nice as a late round flyer, but may end up being a guy that you drop after a couple of weeks and look for someone that can give you more immediate help. Maybe by the end of this season or beginning of next season, where, this is a different conversation.
And just to add in one last thought on that, what would the trade look like? The Hawks have been rumored to be in the Pascal Siakam sweepstakes. If they're able to pull off a trade that's like DeAndre Hunter, Saddiq Bey, Clint Capella, and a pick or two, which is just seems like a lot, they're not going to – like Pascal Siakam would be the starting power forward with Okongwu at center. Are we starting Jalen Johnson at small forward? Maybe, but would a guy like AJ Griffin or Bogdan Bogdanovic make a little bit more sense, or somebody else entirely? I don't really know because, so it would have to be a very specific trade that doesn't bring in a power forward. Kind of can't really see that happening.
Just to walk that back for a second, you think that's a lot? If your team was going to give that for Spicy P to put him with DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, you would say, maybe let's rethink it?
No, I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that as a Hawks fan. I don't even know if the Raptors might be saying that's 3 scraps. I don't want any of that, but I think it is. I say it's a lot because it's 3 starters for the Hawks going out to bring in one. It just happens to also be at the same position as Jalen Johnson. It would have to be, okay, Okongwu has taken a step this year. Jalen Johnson's taken a step this year. AJ Griffin's taken a step this year. Now we're comfortable giving up all these assets to bring in a 3rd star.
All right. Love the Hawks talk for you, Noah.
Of course.
All right. From Air Dunks, more ranking help. Weary of free throw percentage in a Roto league. What order would you rank? Nick Claxton, Walker, the Ranger Kessler, Alperen Şengün, Nick Vucevic. What are we thinking here, man, about the free throw percentage for these guys?
Yeah, so to me in Roto leagues, free throw, and I think we're both not necessarily like we're more head-to-head players than we are Roto leagues, but Nick Claxton isn't getting to the free throw line 10 times a game and only hitting 6. Like he's, he has games where he shoots more, but I feel like him and Kessler aren't dominating and just sitting at the line all game long because teams can't stop them aside from that. So I'm not too worried in Roto leagues because you stretch that out over the course of the year. It's really not totally tanking your free throw percentage as much as a guy like Giannis is because he's getting to the line 2 or 3 times as often. So I'm still going Claxton and Kessler first. And then probably Vooch Şengün. I know a lot of people really like Şengün this year, and he has looked good during the preseason from what we've seen. I'm not against Şengün. I just think that I would probably go Vooch over him. So I think I'd go Claxton, Kessler, Vooch, Şengün.
All right. Yeah, that's totally fair. I don't think I have too much to add there. Obviously, Vooch is the best free throw shooter out of this group. But the other guys do offer you a little bit more for what they do, right, as far as field goal percentage and block shots. But if you're looking for somebody that offers some help in a few more categories, Vucevic is a pretty good three-point shooter. Obviously, we talked about the free throw percentage. He's a good passer for a big man, and he's going to score a lot more points than any of these other guys as well. So if you're looking for that, he's going to be your guy with the free throw percentage concerns. But if you're looking for an elite big for those stats that I just mentioned, then the other guys in the order that you listed them.
And Claxton shot 246 free throws last year over however many games he played. It's at 3.2 free throws per game. Just to put that in perspective, as I'm trying to quickly pull this up while I'm talking, and Giannis shot 772 free throws last year, so 12.3 per game. So even if Giannis's percentage is better, Claxton's really not adding that many misses to your total free. I mean, he missed a little over 100 free throws last year, and Giannis missed almost 300. So over the course of the year in a Roto league, you can easily negate that with a couple really good free throw shooters. So if you're able to start your draft with an SGA or a Dame, it pretty much like totally negates any struggles from Claxton or Kessler.
All right. Moving down to Brenda Jones. Looking at my team, I feel I need another point guard. My end of bench right now is KCP, Bogdan, and Kuminga. Would you add Kobe White or Cole Anthony for one of those guys?
Go for it, man.
Yeah, man. So KCP, I don't know how to feel about KCP. You got to feel a certain kind of way, right? I mean, he usually pushes for those top 100 numbers, but he's another one of those guys whose fantasy value is usually inflated just because he's towards the top of the list in steals. He's not going to get you a whole lot of other, production across the board that's really going to excite you. For me, I'm most excited about Kobe White. So I'll drop KCP. I'll grab Kobe White. We've known him as an inefficient scorer for his brief, time in the NBA. But we've seen in preseason that, hey, maybe he can be a little bit more. Maybe we can get some rebounds, some steals, some assists. And if he's a starting point guard, with some additional playmaking responsibilities, maybe, his experience, we see some field goal percentage start to tick up a little bit. We obviously know he can score and hit three-pointers. So for all of those reasons, I'm much more excited about him. And, I'm dropping KCP for him.
Honestly, looking at the list, I think I'm more excited about Kobe White and Cole. Guys, I think Kuminga has a ton of upside, and he's been awesome during the preseason. But the moment Draymond Green gets healthy, he's back to the bench, playing 20 minutes per game. Kobe White, like you said, is the starting point guard for Chicago, or at least it seems like it. Everything that you read is saying that he's taken a step as a leader. He's just fitting the team a lot better, which is why he's starting. And then Cole Anthony was really good last year. He took a step forward with his field goal percentage. He wasn't quite as much of a liability. He shot 45% from the floor. Pretty sneaky good rebounder as well. I know it's crowded in Orlando, but I think I'd take both of those guys and drop KCP and Bogdan, in my opinion. Like you already talked about KCP. Bogdan's going to be a sixth man in Atlanta. This was just me sneaking in my opportunity to talk about the Hawks more, Zach. But, I mean, he's going to give you three. He's going to give you points. He's not doing a ton else. I think KCP and Bogdan are more veteran players. We kind of know what we're getting. The other three are younger, have a lot more upside. And it seems like Kobe White's going to have the largest role out of everybody here. Obviously, KCP is also a starter, but I think I'd probably drop KCP and Bogdan, get Kobe White, Cole Anthony. You can probably find KCP and Bogdan eventually on the waiver wire. If not, somebody else is going to be really good to stream. So if Kobe White and Cole Anthony don't work out, can just drop them and stream. Cole Anthony could also be a trade deadline target to end up on another team and maybe have a larger role because Orlando is they have so many guards. I would think they have to make a trade. I don't know if it's Suggs or Fultz or Cole Anthony, probably not Anthony Black because they just added him. But Cole Anthony could see an increased role, whether he's traded or they trade somebody else. Maybe they just keep the logjam at point guard and say, hey, we like having a lot of guards. We're good. But you're taking the chance there.
All right. Back to air dunks. Vassell, J-Dub, Tyrese Maxey. How early would you consider grabbing them, and in what order? 8-cat Roto. Noah, your guy Devin Vassell. I'm assuming he's going to be at the top of this list for you, but am I right? And in what order are you taking the other two guys?
I have Vassell probably. I like him and I like Jalen Williams a lot. They're kind of going around the same range. Maxey goes earlier than them. This is obviously just generally Yahoo ADP, not specifically for 8-cat Roto leagues. So that's kind of a toss-up. I feel like I haven't gotten any Maxey, whether it's mock drafts or regular drafts this year, just for whatever reason. So how early would I consider drafting them? I think 6th round, if we get some solid news about Harden saying he's gone and Maxey's going to be the number 2 alongside Embiid, because if they're able, I doubt Daryl Morey is going to be able to get a star player the way he's suggesting that he wants to for James Harden. But if Harden's just going to sit there, cool, I'm not playing until I get traded. I like Maxey a lot. So then I might go Maxey early. I might go, goodness, this is a tough one. I'd probably go Maxey, Jalen Williams, Devin Vassell. As much as I like Devin Vassell this year, I still think the other two should be drafted a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I like Maxey the best out of this bunch as well. You surprised me here with the with the lack of Vassell love here. You ranked him 3rd out of these guys, man.
It hurts
I guess
my
we're not
heart,
simpatico. Man. Yeah.
It hurts my heart.
But yeah, no, I agree with you though. I think Maxey, obviously Harden, there's no way he plays for the Sixers this season, right? Even if they don't trade him, he's not going to show up and
Right.
play nice with his spurned ex, Daryl Morey, right?
I'd say it's like a 5% chance. Something would have to be pretty dramatic happening for that to change. Got a Bleacher Report notification earlier saying in 14 days of practice for Philadelphia, James Harden has participated in like one scrimmage. So like he's quote unquote been at practice a little bit, but he hasn't really been practicing. I think he's just doing his thing to try and make life inconvenient for them and kind of force his hand with the trade. They at their controlled, or I guess it was like a team scrimmage where fans were able to come watch. They announced the starters, or all their typical starters were announced as coaches. Like their names were announced, and they were just kind of coaching that game. Didn't announce Harden despite him being there earlier in the day. I'm just treating him as not a Philadelphia 76er anymore. And is he going to sit there and just not be on a team this year, or are they going to be able to find a trade for him? It's really the last question we need answering before we can have all the data in front of us to really draft in fantasy this year, but we're probably not going to get it until after the season starts.
You're on the clock in the 4th round. Are you touching James Harden? Whether that's a perceived value pick for a guy that could be a 1st or 2nd rounder, or is this just I'm not drafting him because I have no idea what's going to happen type of situation? How do you feel?
It would take a couple other factors. So I think 4th round, yes. 3rd round, maybe. It depends on what I've done in my first 2 rounds and what I'm willing to do the rest of the draft. Because if I'm going to take Harden in round 3 or round 4, I can't take any other real, chances. I have to get 2 guys that are very safe picks. I can't, probably go a guy like LaMelo in the 1st round, even though I really, really like him this year. I'd probably rather go a little bit of a safer pick. And that kind of contradicts a little bit maybe, but I'd probably rather go like a Damian Lillard, somebody I know, really good production, is going to play a Jason Tatum, a guy that is going to play 70 games and give you really good numbers, that hasn't really kind of burned us in the past. Then I'm more comfortable drafting a James Harden in round 3 or round 4. I think if it gets to round 4, it's kind of like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. We just need to take him. And like if something happens, but you're talking about, okay, a trade happens in January or February, the last few months of the season, you have a top 20 guy in fantasy basketball. But then again, after that, after you make that pick, you have to go very, very safe. Just try and take best player available. Don't reach for your guys as much. Try and play it safe.
All right. Love the breakdown, man. I am on the opposite side of that. I think at some point you look at value, but at some point you just say, hey, enough is enough. I know what I'm looking at here, or you don't know what you're looking at in this case. So I am not taking Harden no matter where he falls. Same thing with Zion Williamson. I'm not taking him in the 6th round. I'm not taking him in the 7th round. Wherever he falls, he's risky for a reason, right? So those are guys that are completely off my radar this year. But for the reasons that you mentioned, I can totally understand why people would want to take a chance on him.
Zion's there round 10 for you.
Oh, round 10, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, round 10, I may be dropping that guy tomorrow, for no reason. So totally, yeah. I'll take Zion there.
Just to drop him.
Just to drop him, man.
You're the guy that dropped Zion Williamson.
All right, we're back with some late round sleepers. This is always a hot topic. This is just like, who's your 1st round pick? Who's your 2nd round pick? Who is your last round pick? We just talked about it. It's not going to be Zion. He won't be there until the end. Who's it going to be, man?
Yeah, it's getting tough because I feel like a month ago, we've been doing mocks for 3 months now, and it felt like the late round swings from 3 months ago are now top 100 guys. And even as recently as like 3 weeks ago, you talk about, people were saying, okay, I want to take Ben Simmons as a late round guy. Okay, I'm going to take Ben Simmons as an 11th round guy. Now Ben Simmons is going around pick 100 when you do drafts. And when we were doing, I think it was when we were doing the Rotoworld show, the guy took Ben Simmons at 72. And I don't think that'll happen very often, but it's hard to say because all my favorite late round sleepers tend to be going earlier and earlier because like Asar Thompson's another example. So kind of depends on the draft. I think Kobe White's a good one, but again, starting to go a little bit earlier. Another guy, Josh Richardson, I know you like him as well. could start in Miami, but should at least be the sixth man. He's had 2 really good fantasy seasons in his career. Both came Miami. That tends to be the case for a lot of guys. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes back to Miami where he had his best seasons and is able to not necessarily pick up right where he left off, but give us some much better value than he has over the last few seasons.
Yeah, man, I think it's getting tough here to kind of figure out who the late round guys are because, as you mentioned, a lot of these dudes are starting to rise up draft boards. But some names that have kind of emerged from preseason play, we look at Bilal Coulibaly from from Washington, the cool baller. Favorite of mine, Christian Brown, Julian Strawther from the Nuggets. Somebody is going to get some playing time with Denver. We're looking at Jeremy Sohan, who, maybe it's
Could
a
start at
rumor
point
going
guard.
around. Yeah, maybe a starting point guard for Pop. The Thompson twins, both of them. Amin Thompson looking pretty good for the Rockets in preseason play. Oscar Thompson, somebody that we've been talking about for a little while now. Jonathan Kuminga has been playing well in the preseason. Maybe see some opportunities with Draymond Green out. And if we look at the often injured and currently injured New Orleans Pelicans, Dyson Daniels was a name that we had been looking at, maybe as a late round sleeper coming into the preseason. Maybe we look even deeper to their rookie Jordan Hawkins. Somebody in New Orleans is going to see some additional playing time this season just due to the litany of injuries they're dealing with. So those are some guys that we're looking at here. Anybody else to add here, Noah, or have we kind of covered it?
Goodness, man, you gave a nice, good list. I think that's plenty of late round sleepers. A lot of rookies that could end up seeing good size role this season, especially as it progresses. I liked the Coulibaly suggestion. I think the fact that he's starting already is huge for Washington. Really good defensive numbers. So no, man, I think you kind of hit them all.
All right, man. All right, Kool-Aid tripping. Oh yeah. Would it be safe to say that Saddiq Bey is the safe pick for now than Jalen Johnson and drop Saddiq when Jalen takes over? So look, man, we're on Baywatch here, and we are back to talking about your favorite Atlanta Hawks. I think this is a testament to how popular you've gotten over at NBC. Noah, people are tuning in to see you, man. They are asking about your favorite team right now. Give the people what they want.
Yeah, Zach, the guys I pay $5 to come in here and just ask Hawks questions so this can turn into a Hawks podcast. But I guess it would be technically correct to say Saddiq Bey is the safe pick, but it's not the pick I'm making. Even if he is the starter, which I imagine he will be, he's going to give you some threes, probably a little bit of a better field goal percentage in Atlanta than he had in Detroit. Guy that plays hard, probably going to be a halfway decent rebounder. That's about it. He's not a great player for fantasy. And it wouldn't be shocking if Jalen Johnson takes over rather quickly. I personally think it'll take a couple months, maybe get a few starts here and there, maybe depending on matchups. But Jalen Johnson's game is much better for fantasy basketball, provides more defensive stats, should be more efficient, more playmaking. I would just rather take Jalen Johnson's 20 minutes per game over Saddiq Bey's 25, 26 minutes per game. Significantly better for fantasy. Bey is maybe a guy that I would take in the later rounds or should go in the later rounds. But I feel like once it hits round 12, I'm only taking upside swings. So I really haven't gotten a chance to take Saddiq Bey often. So I'd rather have Jalen Johnson a round or two later and just try and get somebody else instead of Bey.
All right. I love it. Yeah, nothing safe over here from you, Noah.
Never. Nothing's ever safe. No safe picks. Except when we take James Harden. You're getting me to contradict myself. How many times can you do that this episode, Zach?
I'm doing my best, man, to tie you in knots right now. All right. And as we often hear from Josh Lloyd, one of his favorite sound bites. Oh, hi, Mark. From Mark Burns. Is Lively for real? Or is J Kidd just pulling our leg? I don't know. Jason Kidd is known to do that. What do we think here? Is Derek Lively for real?
I want to say yes. I want to say Jason Kidd's not just doing that to mess with us. He could just be doing it as an experiment, but I really think Derek Lively is going to start at center this season. Is he going to be a starting center that plays 28 minutes per game? Maybe. Is he a starting center that like Dwight Powell has been in the past that plays 12 minutes per game. And it's just like, why are you starting him and then barely playing him? It just doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. I imagine that it's going to be somewhere in the middle. We'll see Derek Lively start, play 22 minutes per game. That's enough time for him to give you a block and a half and maybe some decent rebounding numbers and a high field goal percentage. But he's a rookie, has the upside to do a lot more. I have no problem taking him in the last couple rounds, probably not taking him before 120, just because we aren't sure and things can change so quickly. But the talent's there. I think I'd got to take him after pick 120. So I'd be like around 11. Maybe that even sounds ambitious the way I'm saying it. Maybe around 12 is probably the earliest I'd take him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm in on Derek Lively for this year. Even if he plays, 20 couple minutes a night, I mean, is that enough for 7 rebounds and, 1.5 blocks, with 60% or better field goal percentage? Yeah, I think so. And with those numbers, he's going to give you top 100 value potentially. And you can get him much later in a draft, maybe going undrafted in some leagues. So yeah, round 10, round 11, I'm totally fine taking a chance on him there. And again, at that range, you can always drop these guys pretty quickly, like we've been talking about with the Jalen Johnson, with the Saddiq Bey. But for a Derek Lively, it's very tough to find blocks late in the draft. So I think he's, well worth your investment there. All right. Is Wemby, you say potato, I say potato. You say Wemby, I say Wemba. At the 20th pick, too early, over what will probably be a choice of Triple J, Cat, or McHale. Ooh, this is spicy. Are you taking Wemba over these guys?
I think that if you want him on your team, then you kind of have to at this point. The hype has gotten absolutely out of control, and rightfully so. He's a generational player. We've seen him do stuff at 7'5" that guys are not doing at 6'5". So it's ridiculous. Obviously the dunking, but I'm talking about the ball handling skills. Guys much smaller than him don't even look that good at times. So just crazy. However, I think personally, I'm probably going all 3 of those guys over him. I think that Wemby could end up having a generational rookie season and pan out and be worth a top 20 pick. I think the odds are more in favor of him having a good rookie year, but also just not having some top 20 fantasy season as a rookie just because it's his first year in the NBA. If anybody's going to do it, I'd say he's got a good chance, but I'd rather go with Jaren Jackson Jr. He's going to have a really big offensive load with John Morant suspended and still is going to give you generational blocks. Mikal Bridges, who's going to play 82 games. Wemby's probably going to play more in the 50s, maybe low 60s. And give you really good production as the star player, or Cat, who's probably going to have a bit of a bounce back year after missing most of last year due to injury. I think he's going to be worth a late second round pick there. So I'd go all 3 of those guys over Wemby. But if you are just dead set on getting Wemby, you probably have to get him in the second round.
I don't think I could have said it better myself, man. Yes, I have all 3 of these guys ranked over Wemby, but if it's my turn at pick 20, yeah, it's fun, man. In some of my drafts, yes, I'll go ahead and grab Wemby, man. I don't think that gets talked about enough, that this is for fun, man. And some of these guys are going much earlier because of the hype. And I'm totally fine with taking Wemby here. I do not think you're going to get obliterated in your draft if you take Wemby at 20. You can certainly make up for, if he ends up hurting your team in any sort of way, you can certainly make up for that later in a draft. So I'm totally fine taking him here at 20 if that's what you desire. All right. And how about this? As if on cue, from Wembanyama's fingers himself, a player that is very underrated is Devin Vassell. Devin is definitely a top 5 round pick. That is not a question.
I don't disagree with it. I mean, we can talk about it. I don't disagree with it. I think let's do it. I think he's a guy that you take in round 6 because that's kind of where he's going. But if you reach a few spots, it's fine. I think he's a guy that has a chance to finish in the top 50. So I have no problem with calling him a 5th round guy. If you want to take him in the 5th round, that's totally fine. You might have to in some drafts just to make sure you get him. But I think that you get better value by waiting till round 6 to get him. Assuming you kind of know the other guys in your league or other managers in your league and making sure that he's going to be available. Because if somebody else is this hyped about him, you might have to get him in round 5. But I have no problem taking him in round 5. I think round 4 is ambitious. Round 5 is still ambitious, but totally fine with me.
So just to play devil's advocate here, so if you're good with him in the 5th round, which is, picks 48 through 60, and we ranked earlier Tyrese Maxey and Jalen Williams, are you comfortable taking both of those guys in the 4th round?
No, I think that they're also guys I'd be comfortable taking in the 5th round. I think it's a more of a range of outcomes kind of thing where I really believe Devin Vassell is going to have a top 50 season. But I can also see an outcome where he just doesn't. He's doesn't take a big leap forward. The attention's all on Wemby, but Wemby's actually just that good. And Devin Vassell doesn't quite take that step that we expect him to. So I'd have no problem taking all those guys in round 5.
All right. I love it. All right. Turning our attention to Dungeons and Dragons, we need to rank some wizards here. Oh, excuse me. This is Denny, Grand Slam Avdia, Special K, Corey Kispert, and the cool baller, Bilal Coulibaly. Who will start and who could help a fantasy team the most? What are we thinking? Are all 3 of these guys going to start? I don't think so, based on other guys on the roster. But which one is the most likely to start and stick in the starting lineup? And who's going to help your fantasy team out the most?
I think it's the same ranking for that list. I think it's Coulibaly 1. I think he's going to start. I think he's going to be able to help your fantasy team out the most. The offense has looked good during the preseason, but the defense is what's going to get him on the floor. I think originally I expected Kispert to start. I think he's still going to have a green light when he comes in. He was really good down the stretch of last season. He's going to have a similar role this year. Maybe not quite as many shots. But it makes more sense to start Coulibaly with having Jordan Poole, Tyus Jones, Kyle Kuzma starting. I think they need a really, really good defender in there. And having Coulibaly in there to kind of guard the Jason Tatums and Jimmy Butlers and LeBrons and Kevin Durant's, Devin Booker's, et cetera's of the league. Every team has somebody, but having him in the starting lineup makes the most sense for them. And based on the preseason, it looks like he's going to be able to get some really good defensive numbers along with production in other areas. Kispert's number 2 for me, really just for threes. But he's going to get a lot of them. And then I'm pretty much out on Denny Avdija. I think that if they start him, it'll probably be more at a power forward role when Kyle Kuzma's out. It's a make or break year for him, and I just think it's going to lean towards the break.
Yeah, I think Coulibaly probably has the most upside. But again, if we're playing a little devil's advocate, could he potentially be a guy that is, very good, very sound defender in real life NBA, but not necessarily a guy that gets you a whole ton of value in the counting stats that you need for fantasy hoops? I think that's within the realm of possibilities. Kispert is probably my least favorite option here, just because he's a 3-point specialist. And Avdia, I think, is very interesting. We saw him in stretches last year play pretty well with rebounds, with points, with threes and steals. The efficiency is complete garbage. But if you can live with that, I think he does enough elsewhere to be worth a roster spot, especially when you consider that the front court is very, very thin in Washington, and maybe one injury away from him seeing significant minutes.
I think for Coulibaly, he has, through 2 preseason games, 7 steals and 2 blocks. I need to actually go, or maybe they don't have that anymore. I've been seeing things at NBA.com because you used to be able to go on their stats, click, and watch all the plays just like really quickly to be able to see all of his steals and all of his blocks from the preseason. I think I saw on Twitter that they've been kind of doing away with that. So maybe you can't, but he has 7 steals and 2 blocks in 2 games. I think that's very, very good production, especially from a rookie for fantasy basketball. So somebody can double check me on that and make sure he didn't literally just get the ball thrown to him 9 times and some of them were blocks and some of them were steals. But I think he's going to be a really good defender and a really good defender in fantasy.
Right on. All right. All right, from another Double J, best pairings with Jokic on the turn, 12 team, 9 cat. So we have talked first and second round pairings. That is a hot topic and one that is at the front of our mind after putting out today's article. So you have the presumed first pick. You're taking Jokic, and it comes back to you at pick 24. So you'll have picks 24 and 25 then at the turn. Noah, who are some guys in that range that you would put with Jokic? And is there any consideration you put into a potential punt or potential categories that Jokic is strong or weak in?
Well, thankfully with Jokic, there aren't many categories that he's very weak in. You can, if you want to punt something, go for it. He can help you everywhere else. I mean, maybe you punt blocks because he's not an elite shot blocker, but I don't know. I think you can kind of have the freedom to go get your guys in round 2, round 3, just on the back-to-back there. Just get the 2 guys that you like the most. I think if I'm trying to, say, okay, this is the best fit, best pairing, maybe guys like Jimmy Butler, Lowry Markkanen that should be there on the turn. But Zach, I think this is a lot more fun. I was toying around with this idea in my mind the other day, and I think if you just have fun and reach on 2 guys and you just literally go Jokic 1, Wemby second round, Chet round 3, and just reach 2.5 or a round and a half on Chet. What do you think? I think that would be, 1, a lot of fun, but 2, also like a pretty effective strategy to get all 3 of those guys. That's a lot of blocks right there with Wemby and Chet to kind of make up for Jokic. But also, I mean, maybe the only issues that Wemby and Chet would have as rookies are turnovers, which Jokic has, or a poor field goal percentage, which Jokic can help make up to make it not so bad, but then you can just punt field goal percentage. I don't know. I think it's reaching for 2 guys, but you can make it work in a 9-cat league.
Yeah, I think you can certainly make it work. And I think that would be a ton of fun, man. If we're talking just from a pure, joy perspective in fantasy hoops, you're getting, like you said, man, you're getting elite rebounds, elite blocks, field goal percentage, depending on how the rookies do. Maybe Jokic can help make up for that a little bit. You're getting crazy assists from Jokic, which can kind of buoy Chet and Wembanyama's probably lack of big assist numbers, and you can make up for those with your 4th and 5th round pick. Obviously, there's still some great guards in that round, and points. You're going to be competitive in points, and again, you can still make those up a little bit, in 4th and 5th round, as well as some 3-pointers. So yeah, man, I think giving that your strong base right there, I think that would be, it's a phenomenal way to start your draft, man. It would give you a lot of different options for your mid to late round selections. So, yeah.
If anything, it's fun. If anything, like, you're going to have a team that you say, this is really cool. Is it going to work? I don't know, but I think it would be fun. But I think if I'm going, oh, this is the smartest thing, I think Jimmy Butler and Lowry Markkanen give you solid production across the board, fit well with Jokic.
Absolutely, man. I love it. All right. Friend of the show, Adam King, all the way up from Australia. I'd like to get your opinion on a couple of guys, namely Porzingis and Okongwu. Both have pros and cons, I think. All right, Noah, take it away, man. What are your thoughts on KP and Double O?
I also think they have pros and cons. I think Porzingis is going to start in Boston. We don't know what the starting lineup is going to look like, but he should get easier looks than he ever has because he has 2 elite scorers alongside of him. Is he going to start at center with Jason Tatum at power forward, or start kind of in a 2 big lineup alongside Al Horford? Ideally for fantasy, he'd probably start at center with Tatum next to him so he can get a few more rebounds, a few more blocks with Horford not there. But there'll be plenty of minutes with Porzingis at center with no Horford, so not too worried about that. Porzingis is going to be really good. You may not see the same volume, but he's still going to be very effective in fantasy. So I like him a lot. I mean, his Yahoo ADP is kind of second half of the 4th round, and I think he can easily make up that value because he's that kind of talent. Okongwu, I think, has a wider range of outcomes if something happens that allows him to start, whether it be an injury or a trade or just outright taking the spot. I think that's the least likely option, but I think he can be really, really effective in fantasy. They also experimented with starting him at power forward during the preseason. I don't imagine that they do that during the regular season, but he knocked down 2 threes in a game during the preseason as well. I don't remember if it was the same game or not, but I think that Okongwu should be in for a really solid year. I think he was just outside the top 75 last year while coming off the bench. Unfortunately, if he comes off the bench, it probably does limit his upside if they just kind of stick with what they have and he gets 22 minutes per game. He's still going to be effective, but not quite as effective as if he's a starter playing 28 to 30 minutes per game.
Yeah, man. I think for Porzingis, it always comes down to health. I feel like that's the discussion we have every year, right? We can just kind of make that an evergreen topic. Is Kristaps Porzingis going to be healthy heading into the season? And if the answer is yes, on a per game basis, you've got a top 15 to top 20 guy, pretty reliably. For Okongwu, yeah, if they can give him some playing time at power forward, that's awesome. We saw at the end of the season that he and Clint Capella were basically in an even timeshare, and Okongwu was putting up some pretty strong numbers. I think still I'm not as high on Okongwu until, we see Capella get moved or see his minutes reduced a bit. But Okongwu, just on a per minute basis, I think can still be really effective, and he's absolutely worth drafting in the later rounds. Okay. We got time for one more, I think, Noah. Right. Menace Podman, NBA and Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Shout out. In today's game, what would be your preferred category or categories to punt? Have you had success punting before? So one that I'm really into this year and that I've had success with in the past is punting free throw percentage. I think just in the first round, you can have a lot of fun with this one. You can get a really strong player in a Giannis, in a Luka Doncic, in an Anthony Davis. And then you can make some really nice pairings. I think in the second round, you have an Anthony Edwards, you have a Domantas Sabonis, and you do have some flexibility throughout your draft if you go this route. Another one that I like that we touched on earlier is punting blocks. A lot of your elite guards in the first round are going to be deficient in that category. So a Tyrese Halliburton, a Steph Curry, a Devin Booker, Trae Young, these are the guys that you're going to be building your team around. And when you're filling out your roster later in the draft, yes, you're punting blocks, but that doesn't mean you ignore that category completely. So as you're filling out the big men spots in your draft later on, you can take a Robert Williams, a Dan Gafford, a Derek Lively, a Mark Williams, and put these guys into your lineup and potentially be competitive in that category as well. Even though you're, punting that category and you're really strong with the traditional guard stats of, points, steals, threes, free throw percentage, and assists. Noah, how about you, man?
Yeah, I think my favorite punt strategy this year, one of them is punting free throws. I do like doing that because it tends to be that I end up with the 8th pick in every freaking draft I do. It's either 2, 8, or 11. And I like 11. I think I like 8. Not loving 2, but those are kind of the three. And the 3 strategies I've done are punting assists from 2, going Embiid, punting assists, punting free throws by starting with Giannis. And then my favorite one, which is the most fun to me, is going at pick 10, 11, or 12 and starting with 2 of Dame, LaMelo, or Trae Young and punting free throws and turnovers. I don't remember which, probably like every article that I've had the opportunity to talk about this I have. So I think there's at least 2 in that draft guide talking about starting like that with Trae and LaMelo are my 2 favorites. Dame still fits as well, which is why I include him. But my ideal start is LaMelo, then Trae Young, and just getting a bunch of points, a bunch of assists, plenty of threes, good free throw percentage, and just saying, well, I guess it's also a turnover punt with that as well. Punt turnovers, punt field goal percentage. Yeah, actually I included that at the beginning, so I don't know why I'm walking that back. But yeah, punting those 2 categories is probably the most fun for me because then you can just get a bunch of guys that are going to chuck shots and do some other stuff, and it's fun.
All right, and you know what? Let's grab one more of these here before we jump off. Who would you rather draft, Bruce Brown or Buddy Hield? What do you think?
I think it's a tougher question in a vacuum, just saying these are the two best players, like choose one. The thing of it is that Buddy Hield's ADP, let me pull it up as I'm kind of talking about it on Yahoo. Buddy Hield's ADP is 81.3, which has him going towards the end of round 7, whereas Bruce Brown's is 119.1, which has him going at the end of round 10. So I'm taking them at their ADP, or even reaching on Bruce Brown and waiting on Buddy Hield. I'm taking Bruce Brown every time, just because it's a 30 pick difference right there, or over a 30 pick difference. In a vacuum, I think it's close. I think it kind of depends on team fit. I think the fact that it's a conversation just means you probably need to go Bruce Brown at ADP. But Buddy Hield's role is kind of questionable. I was talking about this with Josh a couple weeks ago on his show, that he's been very solid the past few seasons in fantasy, but now he's kind of in a sixth man role. His role's reduced. He's still going to give you threes, maybe a little bit of playmaking off the bench, but Indiana does have a few point guards there to kind of take on that role. So I think Bruce Brown at ADP 100%, and then kind of depends on your team if you're just talking about in a vacuum.
All right. Yeah, I like Bruce Brown, as you mentioned, at the value 30 picks later. And if Buddy Hield ends up getting moved, which is a real possibility, even more upside for Bruce Brown, the world champion Bruce Brown. All right. That will do it for today's show. Apologies, guys, again for the late start today with the technical difficulties. That will all be worked out next week. When we are talking about the season opener. I mean, can you believe it, Noah? We are a week away. We'll be talking Tuesday, and we will be 3 hours away from legitimate NBA basketball. Lakers and Nuggets kick us off next Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern, followed by Suns and Warriors at 10 o'clock. Are you excited, man?
Zach, I'm pumped. I need basketball back bad. And I'm very excited for it. So just 2 games will be like a little tease, and then the next day we'll get probably like 13 games. So,
all right, yes, and that next day our fingers will be falling off from all the updates we'll be writing. All right, Noah, it's a pleasure as always, my friend. Thank you so much for being here, and we will talk to you guys again next Tuesday.
See you guys.